Despite the sunny day, Kelly and Linda were sad and puzzled because they could not find Kyle for a long time. Kelly always showed concern for her half-sister, so now she decided to go down the slope herself and look for her brother there. When she descended low enough, she felt that the safety net had weakened. Raising her head, the girl discovered with horror that her sister had deliberately unfastened the carabiner with which her rope was attached to the tree. Kelly was scared, confused, and most importantly, she didn't understand why they did this to her. Linda screamed that she hated her and that her stepsister took everything from her, even the love of her father and brother. In a matter of minutes, life flashed before my eyes. She recalled the moment she heard the news that young entrepreneur Kevin had been arrested for murder. He obviously wasn't indifferent to her, and this made her feel unbearably painful. The only thought in the girl's head was that if she could fix everything, she would stay away from Kevin and be happy. Suddenly, Kelly heard her sister's worried voice. Linda said that she was in pain and asked to let her go. Then she plaintively asked for something, repeating what Kelly had promised her. But the heroine still did not understand what her stepsister wanted from her, what she promised, and why Linda began to look much younger. Looking at her hands, she was surprised to find that there were no burns. The girl remembered that it was in the second year of high school when she had to perform instead of Linda, which means that she was reborn. Linda, persuading Kelly to go on stage in her place, gave a bunch of different reasons. She even accused her sister of leaving their family without money because of her eye surgery. Kel understood that Linda wanted to attract the attention of Kevin, who was in the hall in this way. But she did not intend to repeat past mistakes. Seeing that nothing was working, the girl blurted out that their dad might get upset and get worse. Despite the fact that her father was not her own, the heroine loved him very much, therefore, she could not resist the last argument. Just a moment, and she was already standing in a dress and hat, preparing to go on stage. The satisfied sister happily reported that she had made sure in advance that the lights were dimmed. Sitting at the piano, Kelly recalled how in a past life it was after this performance that Linda became a celebrity, which led to many problems. She urgently needs to come up with something so that the past does not repeat itself. Kevin was playing cards with his friends at this time, not paying attention to what was happening around him. Suddenly, he was attracted by the music coming from the stage, and he began to peer into who was playing it. The participant felt his gaze with excitement, but immediately reassured herself that he did not know her, and she was simply replacing her sister. The audience was delighted with what they heard playing the piano. The performance was so beautiful that the guys doubted that this was a student from their school, because, according to them, only worthless rich people study with them, and this girl looks talented and elegant. Even the tough and self-confident Kevin admitted that the game was really good, but he couldn't stand such women. Feeling the guy's gaze on her again, the heroine bitterly recalled what he was like in a past life. As a result of his temper and intolerance, he killed a man. She decides to change the past so that she never has a connection with him and changes the way she plays the instrument. The spectators were disappointed, talked among themselves, and the guys decided to continue playing cards rather than watch this. Linda was furious because the performance was a failure, but Kelly didn't care. She was sure that she had done everything right. Fortunately, the girl did not have to endure her sister's dissatisfaction for long, because she was in a hurry to change things back and ordered her to go out the back door. When the main character asked whether her sister hated her, she replied that she loved her, and not just, but very, very much. She used to believe. But now, having lived her life, the girl knew for sure that all this love was fake, and in the depths of her soul, Linda always wanted her death. After changing into a dress, the lover ran to look for Kevin, but only Kelly knew for sure that this time he would not be interested in a fake. Leaving through the back door, Kel was determined to leave without attracting the attention of the guy from her past life. On the street, she discovered that the rain had stopped, and the world was still the same gray. Along the way, the girl regretted that she died without growing up, but she was warmed by the thought that the operation was successful. In a couple of months, her vision would be restored, and in this life, she would be able to change everything. Thinking about her own things, the heroine didn't even realize that Kevin and his friends were watching her through the window, wondering who she was and why she was with a cane. A few minutes later, a friend said that the girl who played the piano wanted to make friends with their leader. But he was so indifferent that he invited his comrade to get to know her himself if he liked her. After saying that the girl was interested not in him, but in Kevin, the self-confident guy allowed the guest to enter. The girl timidly entered the room and immediately heard the voice of the man whose attention she was so eager for. Without any greeting, he coldly and even arrogantly asked if she liked him. From surprise and such directness, Linda felt her face flush with embarrassment. She admitted that she admires him. Kevin has always been very popular with girls, so this recognition did not touch the guy. It seemed that he was tired of their attention and did not understand what could be admired about him. Irritated, he asked his new fan what fascinated her more: the fact that he smokes, that he beats people, or that it was his fault that he was a teacher in the hospital. Completely confused, the girl began to babble that he was not like that, and that it was just some kind of misunderstanding. Her words made the guy even more nervous. He didn't understand what kind of misunderstanding we were talking about if his dossier stated that he had neurasthenia. Linda had heard more than once that he had a difficult character, but she did not know that he was sick. Thinking that she had already gone so far, she hastened to say that all this was not important to her. After such a statement, Kevin decided that his admiration was just a cover, and in fact, the girl needed his money. Without any ceremony, he said that she would not receive money from him, and that she should get out of here quickly, because he did not want to waste time on an ugly person. Afterwards, he said that he was ready to date only girls like Molly. As she left, Linda replayed what she had just heard and remembered that same Molly, a student at the nearby 7th school. Yes, she had heard more than once that the beauty was Kevin's girlfriend, but she preferred to think that these were just rumors. Suddenly her thoughts switched to her half-sister, whom she always blamed for all her failures. Remembering her, Linda noted that Kelly was many times more beautiful than Molly. It followed that if Kevin called her ugly compared to Molly, then it turns out that she couldn't hold a candle to her half-sister. The only thing that calmed her down was that the guy and the girl didn't know each other. Meanwhile, Kel got off the bus, remembering that in her past life she always walked this way. She was glad that at this time in which she was now reborn, their dad had not yet had an accident, which means they would see each other soon. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp noise. Since her eyes did not see well after the operation, she tried to understand what the sound was that was rapidly approaching. These were guys on bikes rushing at incredible speed. Suddenly, one of them noticed a girl walking with glasses and a cane, whom he recognized as the same one they had seen from the window of their school. Without understanding why, the main one suddenly braked near her. From the surprise and speed of what was happening, Kelly was in a stupor. Coming closer to her, one of the guys began to say that the 7 were really blind. But the heroine was more concerned about why they stopped and what they needed. It didn't take long to guess, as Kevin's voice was soon heard, wondering what she was doing at their school. She couldn't understand why, despite the fact that she tried in every possible way to avoid meeting. They still crossed paths, while the girl was silent, not knowing what to do, so as not to repeat the mistakes of the past. She heard that she was considered not only blind, but also dumb. It seemed like an eternity passed while she stood surrounded by guys. The pause was interrupted by the confident voice of Kevin, who volunteered to give the 7 of them a ride home. He condescendingly added that he wouldn't take the money because he cared about the weak. With his last statement, the hero made his comrades laugh to death. Kelly prayed that they would leave her alone as soon as possible. To his surprise, Kevin found himself looking with interest at the girl standing in front of him. He noted her loose school uniform, her badge, her thin neck. His gaze fell on the cane again, and he even managed to feel that Kelly was nervous, and also that she was an exemplary student. As a result, the guy got the impression that the girl was so fragile and weak that she could be carried away by the wind. Suddenly, he asked what was in her bag. Opening the bag, the heroine was surprised to find strawberries there. But then I remembered that Ollie's dad planted strawberries after learning that it was his daughter's favorite berry. Kevin sharply demanded to give him the strawberries. So as not to anger him, Kelly silently handed him a box of berries. The guys were surprised that the girl remained calm, despite the fact that she was humiliated and robbed, the favorite of all the girls, and this was not enough. He ordered to come closer and give him a treat. The girl had no choice but to follow his instructions. She walked over, put the box of strawberries on the seat, and hurried to the bus. Even Kevin's friends did not expect such cruelty. They did not understand why he was mocking the blind and dumb. They felt sorry for her. The strawberries turned out to be surprisingly sweet and tasty. When the guys asked him to share it with them, he muttered that it was not sweet and threw the box in the trash. Remembering how carefully the girl placed the strawberry on the bike, he wondered whether she was really blind or pretending to be. By then, Kelly had already reached home. She saw a familiar door and was once again convinced that this was not a dream. Entering the house, she joyfully greeted her brother, who was watching TV. How great it is to be home again, surrounded by loved ones. From the kitchen came the caring voice of the father, who called for dinner and asked if Linda was with her. After all, they were together at a performance. How joyful it was to see Ollie's dad, despite the fact that he was not her own. Good relations reigned between them. She remembered that in a past life, she and her mother had an accident, as a result of which her mother died and she developed eye problems. Since then, the father could barely keep up with 3 children, but never tried to leave her and always treated her well. Kel thanked God for giving her the opportunity to return and repay her dad's kindness. She promised herself that she would not let her father die again, and he would live to old age. She said out loud that her sister had gone to a party and would eat there, so the family ate dinner without her. Since she met Kevin on the way home, it means that Linda could not interest him, which is not surprising, because he never liked her. In Kelly's room, she saw a school ID card, a photo of it from the 10th grade, when her eyes hurt terribly from the bright light. Thanks to the fact that the teacher allowed us to cover the spotlight, it was possible to relieve tension from the eyes. The girl had had enough of seeing her classmates and teachers. The next morning, she was already at school, surrounded by friends. How happy she was to hear the teacher's voice again and the rustle of pages that calmed her. For a moment, the heroine even forgot that in her previous life, she had already graduated from school. She was pulled out of her memories by a friend's voice who said that Molly had stopped going to school altogether, and all because she spends all her time at the neighboring school where Kevin studies. This Kevin seems to follow her everywhere, even in conversations. Angelica did not let up, saying that Kelly needed to become the first beauty in school so that they would stop treating her like a pig. And if you manage to steal a guy from Molly, it will be fun to watch how all her pomposity will immediately fall away. The neighbor sitting behind got into the conversation, saying that this guy was too rich and too tough for the schoolgirl. She said that his family owns the largest real estate company in the country, so he gets away with everything. Last week he sent the teacher to the hospital bed, and he wasn't even suspended from classes. Kelly's thoughts ranged from why he did this to the teacher to how rich people can do whatever they want. But it shouldn't concern her. Unexpectedly, she saw Ollie's dad at school. The father said that Linda did not spend the night at home yesterday, saying that she was staying with a friend, but he was worried that her first love would get her into trouble. Worried about his eldest daughter, he asked the younger one to talk to her, because the second one was much more reasonable. By going to her sister's school, Kelly risks meeting Kevin there, but she couldn't refuse her dad. There was nothing to do, so she decided to go in the hope that she would be able to avoid an unwanted meeting. Having told her classmates that she was not feeling well, the girl hurried to leave, asking them to warn the teacher. Approaching the neighboring school, she heard Linda shouting that Molly was not Kevin's girlfriend because he didn't even come to her birthday. The school beauty replied that they were still in a relationship, although the latter did not provide adequate care. She called Linda a child, since she doesn't know that you can't steal someone else's property. The rivals were so heated by the argument that it is not known how long it could continue. Their scream was interrupted by Kelly calling out to her sister. All those present simultaneously turned to the door to see who dared to interrupt such an important and emotional conversation. Linda was very surprised to see her stepsister at her school. The main character resolutely grabbed Linda's hand and moved towards the exit in front of the amazed audience. Perplexed questions ran through the crowd about what a student from the 7th school was doing with them, who her classmate was, whether she was blind or not. Stepping aside, the dissatisfied sister pulled back her hand and said that she was no longer little and could solve her problems herself. Kel said that Dad was worried and could not keep up with them, and persuaded Linda to stop running after Kevin, since it would not lead to anything good, even if she manages to outdo Molly now. Why would she think that a self-confident guy would treat her better than others? In addition, Kelly recalled that the opponent could tell Linda's friends about the performance deception. Realizing what all this could lead to, the older sister admitted that she spent the night with Nicole, but everyone thought differently, and that was fine with her. Everyone was whispering that Kevin liked Linda and invited her to his place for a sleepover. She was pleased with such rumors because it was much better than being called ugly and driven away. In her defense, she said that people did not invent everything for themselves. But feeling her sister's stern gaze, she realized that it was better to confess everything. She called out to Molly and said that her sleepover with Kevin was nothing more than a rumor. In fact, she was with Nicole, which she can confirm. As she left, the school beauty said with a satisfied look that there was nothing surprising, because Kevin couldn't like such an ugly girl. As soon as the crowd dispersed, Linda told Kel to quickly leave so that no one would see them together and guess anything. Although the sisters' goals differed, they were in agreement on one thing. Neither one nor the other wanted anyone to find out about the substitution at yesterday's performance. Therefore, the girl hurried to leave the strange school. As soon as she stepped out of the school gates, a ball flew straight towards her. One of the players ran after him. He was surprised to find there the blind girl they had seen yesterday, which he immediately informed his friend about. Kelly didn't understand why. No matter how hard she tried, they still kept crossing paths. Kevin came up and began to look closely at the girl's face. She didn't understand what he wanted and how she could get out of there as quickly as possible. And then he began to ask what she was doing here again. The poor schoolgirl was so confused that she could not answer. The guy reached out his hand to Kelly's face. He wanted to take off her glasses. In an instant, she raised her cane and struck him on the arm with all her might. Both were confused from surprise. The girl herself did not expect this from herself, however. Neither did Kevin. Knowing the hot temper of their friend, the guys awaited the consequences with horror. They heard that he did not agree that hitting girls was wrong. Tom immediately began to persuade him not to touch the seven because she was blind and it probably happened by accident. Kelly quietly asked for forgiveness, explained that she had photophobia, and hurried away. Brother, as they called each other, enthusiastically noted that it turns out the girl is not mute, and her voice is very beautiful. Looking after the leaving schoolgirl, Kevin tried to understand if she was not mute, then why she hadn't talked to them before, who she took them for. Returning to her school, the girl thought that she was unlucky again, and she again met with the one whom she avoided most of all. Once again, she reminded herself to be careful and stay away from Kevin. She was brought back to the present by her friend's voice, suggesting they go home together. The girl saw a leaflet on her desk, from which she learned about a mathematical Olympiad in which the winner receives a monetary reward. She felt guilty that her family was in debt due to expensive eye surgery. In addition, having been in a past life, she knew that she would soon have an accident, which meant she would need a lot of money again. Due to the fact that his father could not repay the debt, he had to agree to a dangerous job closely related to radiation. She was excited by the idea that she could help her dad financially by participating and winning in the Olympics. Kelly immediately asked Angelica to give her the form for participation in the Olympiad and asked if it was possible to sign up for other subjects. While filling out the form, she thought that she had to prevent an accident so that her father would not have to work with radiation. The idea of participating in different Olympiads did not materialize, since the next one was planned only in the summer. But it was too late. A friend wanted to offer to perform at a nearby school, playing the piano, but remembering that she had vision problems, she decided to remain silent. Having gone outside and finding it raining, the friends decided to wait for Angelica's father, hiding under the visor. A classmate told rumors that Molly's boyfriend was not at her birthday party, but now he is gathering everyone in the most expensive area. Unnoticed, expensive cars stopped in front of them. Having lowered the window, the Kevin they were discussing was looking at them. Kelly's confusion and bewilderment knew no bounds. The guy looked at her intently, without taking his eyes off. The heroine tried her best to show her indifference and ignorance. Angelica even doubted whether everything was all right with the guards, since they allowed strangers into the school grounds. Here, a satisfied Molly appeared on the porch, surrounded by her friends, who thanked her for the opportunity to attend the holiday. Peter invited the girls into his car before they got wet. Molly sat in the front seat and tried to get her boyfriend's attention by calling out to him. But Kevin, still not noticing his companion, casually called out to the students of the 7th school, ordering them to get into the car. Kelly politely declined the offer. The guy, not used to being contradicted, repeated in a dissatisfied tone, saying that they should not force him to repeat the same thing 100 times. The school beauty watched what was happening, not understanding what all this was for. The heroine was adamant and was not going to take advantage of the offer to give them a ride home. In order to complete all this and quickly go to the party, Molly intervened in the conversation and invited the girls to get into the car. Realizing that the principal guy wouldn't budge until they sat down, Kelly agreed. The friends felt constrained and awkward. Seeing her stop, our heroine asked to leave them there. After this phrase, it became clear to Kevin that the girl with glasses was not blind at all, and instead of stopping the car, he increased the gas. Kel couldn't understand what was happening or what this man was up to. Soon, they found themselves in the same expensive area that they had talked about with their friend while standing on the porch of the school. The view was impressive, but the schoolgirl wanted to return home, but she didn't have enough money to pay for a taxi. The smug host of the party told the smart girl to go and have fun too, and he himself moved towards the entrance. The guards bowed to greet him, but he didn't even pay attention to them. Having already entered the building, turning to the schoolgirls, he added that they should not dare to look down on them, but simply relax. The heroine once again realized with bitterness how much Kevin does not care about her opinion, and that he will not calm down until he achieves what he wants. Everything that was happening greatly spoiled the mood of Molly, who had recently been happy. The friend, calming her down, said that all this nonsense was because the blind woman hit Kevin. Peter told her about it. When the guests who happened to be at the party entered the house, they found themselves in a large room where others were already sitting at the table. One of the party host's friends served him a glass and talked about how happy he was to be able to drink with his brother again. But Kevin's face showed indifference. He seemed to have completely lost interest in what was happening. The heroine felt out of place. She wanted to leave this place as quickly as possible. Kevin openly watched Kelly and noted that she looked like a typical crammer. Unexpectedly, he suggested playing a game in which you cannot name numbers that are multiples of 7. According to the rules, the loser will be punished. Everyone agreed with pleasure. Only the heroine sat with a distant look. It seemed that her thoughts were somewhere far away. Naturally, the owner began calling the number 16. Next, Kelly heard the girl sitting next to her say the number 20. There was a pause in the room, and the heroine felt the gaze of everyone present on her. At first, there was a question in her eyes, and then, in a confused voice, she asked if she was participating too. The girl's favorite grinned, not hiding his joy at this outcome of the game. He immediately announced that she had lost and would be punished. Kel tried to explain that she did not know about her participation in the game, since she did not give consent. She said that it was dishonest and she would not complete the task. No one listened to her. The guys only laughed even harder, saying that after a fight they don't wave their fists, and the girls giggled, rejoicing at how the blind 7 were being humiliated. And only Kevin was serious and even stern. He repeated once again so that Kelly stood up and took the piece of paper with the punishment. Realizing that this could not be avoided, she had no choice but to do what was required of her. Pulling out the folded piece of paper, she read the assignment. And before she had time to come to her senses, she felt the paper torn out of her hands. The girl unceremoniously tore out the piece of paper and read out loud that you need to look into the eyes of the opposite sex for 10 seconds. The girls whispered about how terrible the task was and how unpleasant it must be for whoever she chose to carry out the punishment. One of Kevin's friends, who decided that they wanted to choose him as a partner, screamed in horror because he was sure that blind people had holes instead of eyes. Unable to bear what was happening, Angelica begged, asking not to mock the poor girl. But feeling a cold and stern gaze on her, she fell silent. Slowly putting out his cigarette, he called out to Kelly, who was standing in the middle of the room, pointing to the place next to him. He said that he was ready to make a mate for her, since everyone else chickened out. Stepping carefully, the heroine moved towards the sofa, but then she felt a sharp push in her back and almost fell. It was the schoolgirls, led by Molly, who continued to mock her. It was obvious to Kelly that if she didn't indulge Kevin's wishes, she wouldn't get home today. There's no point in stalling, so the girls silently walked over and sat down on the sofa. She did not expect any leniency from the host of the party, but still decided to ask if it was possible to keep her glasses on, given her vision problems. Looking around at the timid guest, the guy noticed that the hands that held the cane were shaking. He realized that the girl was afraid and allowed her to keep her glasses on. The test began, and the participants began to look into each other's eyes. It seemed to Kelly that time had stood still, and that this task would never end. Suddenly, from under his glasses, Kevin saw tears appearing from the bright light of the spotlights, and was even a little confused from surprise. As soon as they announced that the time was up, their friends ran up to the guys to find out if everything was okay. The guy rudely told his friends to leave him alone, but he stood up and said that he was ready to take the girls home. The heroine looked at him. Tears were still flowing from her eyes. Cold and even cruel, Kevin was never touched by anyone's feelings or tears, but for some reason this time everything was different. For him, such a reaction was so incomprehensible that he told the girl to stop crying, because he had not done anything bad to her. Tears were a natural reaction to the bright spotlight, but Kelly was even glad that the guy had misunderstood everything and would finally let them go. Peter called the girls, saying that he and his brother would take them home. Angelique, hearing that she would have to travel separately with Kevin's friend, got scared and burst into tears. She clung to her friend, not wanting to part with her. The heroine tried to calm her down, saying that the guys just wanted to quickly take them home so that their parents would not worry. The crying girl finally agreed, asking her classmate to be more careful. Kevin, not accustomed to waiting, displeasedly called out to his fellow traveler, pointing to the exit. Molly didn't understand what was happening, what it all meant, and how to react. Kelly tried to walk slowly and carefully so as not to fall. Her companion, on the contrary, walked at a brisk pace, and when he turned around, he was clearly unhappy that she was barely dragging along. However, for some reason he stopped and decided to wait for her. At the same time, the annoyed school beauty remembered the current evening and was angry that her lover had never even looked at her. She understood that there was no relationship between them other than the fact that she was just chasing him. But she didn't want to lose even that. Molly ran as fast as she could in the direction where her boyfriend and the blind girl had gone. She wanted to understand what was in his head. Seeing them standing in the hall, she called out to Kevin, but she faced his eyes full of indifference towards her. Not understanding what to do, how to attract attention, the desperate girl rushed to him, hugging him from behind. The guy was even taken aback by surprise. So as not to embarrass the couple, Kelly stepped aside to watch the fish in the aquarium. The main character, not without anger, escaped from the embrace of his so-called soulmate. In an irritated voice, he turned to the girl standing by the aquarium to get into the car. Realizing that all her actions were in vain, Molly harbored a grudge against the one who, in her opinion, ruined their whole evening. When Kelly, when asked by the driver about where she lived, replied that he should leave her at any stop, he clearly did not like it. He took this answer as a reluctance to contact him, which he immediately asked his companion about. The heroine began to shake her head negatively, saying that she was misunderstood. In response, she heard that she had not given in to him for nothing. The girl asked to stop her at the stop they were approaching. Kevin silently did what he was asked to do, but still decided to find out why Kelly preferred to get wet in the rain instead of driving home. She stood silently because she could not tell the whole truth. Suddenly, she felt something being thrown over her head. Turning sharply, I saw Kevin standing behind me. She raised her stick, preparing to defend herself, but this time the guy was already ready and grabbed the cane. Leaning over, he asked if she would come to visit again, or if she still didn't like his character. Discouraged by the uncharacteristic behavior of her fellow traveler, Kelly stood silently. Turning to the smart girl, the guy asked her name. While he was waiting for an answer, he saw a lanyard peeking out of the schoolgirl's pocket, probably from a student's. A second later, the student's document was already in the hands of a young man who called the girl into the car, promising to return the document there. Kel didn't understand how a person could change so quickly. The girl returned the jacket, making it clear that she no longer intended to play by his rules, and went to the bus. Along the way, she realized that glimpses of good in his behavior are only rare impulses, but in fact he remains who he really is, and she should still stay away from him. Left alone, Kevin began to study the student's card, from which he learned the name of the smart girl that she was studying in the 10th grade, and also looked at the photo. There was still a party going on at his mansion, which he had lost interest in. For some reason, he couldn't get the blind girl and everything that happened today out of his head. His thoughts were interrupted by Molly with her offer to play billiards. Without answering, Kevin turned to his friend and invited him to play a computer game. In computer games, the main character was invincible, as in many others. While the beauty, upset by the refusal, was watching the game, something fell out of her jacket pocket. Imagine her surprise when she discovered the student ID of that same hated student of the 7th school. The girl shared her find with Peter. He was not immediately able to understand who was shown in the photo and who owned the document. After a moment, he realized that this was the blind 7 that he had been seeing very often in recent days. Looking at the photograph, he began to laugh out loud. Kelly's look made him laugh so much. Hearing his laughter, the rest of his friends came up and wondered why their brother was laughing so hard. After looking at the girl's photo, one of them said that it was better to have no eyes at all than to have eyes that looked like they were glued on. Rolling around with laughter, he did not notice how Kevin flew up to him and hit him right in the face with all his might. Kevin's indignation knew no bounds. He snatched the student's shirt, still looking angrily at his friend. He was clearly not prepared for such a turn of events. His face betrayed confusion and fear. The enraged Kevin continued to beat the guy, and it is unknown how it would have ended if Peter had not intervened, persuading the first to stop. The young man stopped beating his friend, who had just recently been laughing, and ordered him to get out of his house right away. Heading towards the exit, the still angry guy turned to Molly, ordering her to return the jacket. While the main character was putting the student's card back into his pocket, casually he told the girl that it was all over between them. She refused to believe what she heard, so she asked again. Snarling, he coldly repeated what he had said before. The school beauty began to make claims, saying that she would not allow him to treat her like that. He did not accept her for that. In response to her complaints, Kevin only replied that he did not take her for anyone, and she understood perfectly well what kind of relationship they had. He asked her if she was interested in anything other than his family and money. She had nothing to say to this, because he was right, but the girl was not ready to admit it, much less break up with him. Saying that he might regret it, she ran away from the house, sitting on the sofa and lighting a cigarette. The party host thought about what a busy evening it had been. His friends still didn't understand why Kevin was so upset over some girl, but they didn't dare come up and ask. Sitting in silence, the guy again took the girl's document out of his pocket and began to look at her photo. Meanwhile, Kelly's father brought her to the hospital because her eyes were getting worse. Ollie's dad blamed himself for everything because he didn't come to pick up his daughter on time yesterday and got caught in the rain and got an infection in his eyes. The girl smiled and said that she just needed to be careful. Besides, according to the doctor, everything would pass in a couple of days. Having finished all the work at the hospital, Father Oliver and his daughter went home. Enjoying the fact that no one was home, Linda talked on the phone. When she heard the news about Molly and Kevin's separation, she cried out, unable to contain her joyful emotions. The head of the family, having heard the end of the conversation between his own daughter and a friend, asked what they were talking about. Taken by surprise, Linda frantically thought about how to lie. The father strictly told the girl not to think about relationships, that her studies should come first, because without a good university, her life would be difficult. In response to his words that if he hears rumors about something like that, then he should consider that she does not have a father. The daughter said that she would never do that. Turning to Kelly, he warned that this concerned her too, to which he received a firm answer that she would not fall in love too early. Monday arrived, and the students of the 7th school lined up, as they did every morning. A friend noticed the absence of a student's one around her classmate's neck and asked where it was. The girl calmly replied that she had lost it. Angelica began to feverishly think about how to get out of the situation, because for the absence of a student, the teacher would become furious and deduct points from the class. In addition to this, it will also make you run. The heroine was ready to suffer any punishment rather than humiliate herself in front of Kevin again by returning her document. For the absence of a student, the teacher deducted 0.2 points from the class. In addition, Kelly must run 1.5 kilometers after class and minus 3 points from her personal rating. On the one hand, her classmates were unhappy with the punishment because of someone else's mistake, and on the other hand, they were worried whether running would harm her eyes. After class, Kelly came out to carry out her punishment, and then the same guys passing by on bikes saw her again. Peter couldn't help but laugh when he saw a girl with glasses either running or walking quickly. Taking off his helmet, Tom told the guys that he had heard about the rules of the 7th school, according to which students run around as punishment for misconduct. Kevin sent his comrades to find out what could have done such a diligent-looking girl wrong. Soon, a breathless brother came running and said that the girl was punished for not conforming to her uniform, or rather, for the lack of a student's uniform. The main character, having parked the bike, walked in the direction where he had recently seen Kelly running. Tired from jogging, she sat on a stone near the fence and recalled how before, while dancing, she could easily run 2 or 3 kilometers. Now, due to lack of physical activity due to an eye disease, her body has become completely weak, and she has difficulty even walking short distances. She heard a familiar voice calling her name. Again, thoughts swirled about why he was here and what he needed. She didn't have to rack her brains for long, because the figure of Kevin appeared in front of her, and he put her student ID around her neck. At that moment, he looked intently into her eyes, as if he wanted to see them through dark glasses. He understood that she was being punished because of him, and asked her why she was so stupid. He really puzzled Kelly with his question. She didn't understand how he, who couldn't pass a single exam, could call her, one of the best students, stupid. But it was absolutely clear to her that he was angry about something. What exactly she had no idea about, but she preferred not to make him angry, standing in front of him and lowering her head. She quietly apologized. With this action, the girl completely discouraged Kevin, who did not fully understand her and for whom she was a mystery. He asked if she really hated and despised him so much, but did not hear an answer. Here, one of the brothers intervened, saying that the blind girl was the best student in the class, and everyone in her class were candidates for free admission to the university. And as you know, nerds always despise such ignoramuses, which includes guys. The main character still stood silently, which completely angered the rich guy who was unaccustomed to such treatment. Unable to contain his anger any longer, he began shouting so that the schoolgirl would stop looking down on him. Kelly, who from the very beginning was not happy about the next meeting, hurried to leave silently. And Kevin, who was looking after her, was simply not himself from the feelings that overwhelmed him. He began to kick the stone on which a punished schoolgirl had recently been sitting after a run, and shouted that she was just a teenager who did not deserve his attention. He needed to calm down. He lit a cigarette right at the gate, where he did not go unnoticed by the students of the 7th school, who had heard a lot about him. They admired his beauty, but at the same time discussed that they needed to be more careful with him, as there were rumors about his increased aggressiveness and even inadequacy. Having heard their unflattering conversation, Peter threatened them with problems if they ever said something like that about his friend again. Wanting to distract Kevin, his brother invited him to go shoot at the shooting range. Still in his thoughts, the young man agreed to his friend's proposal. Despite the fact that Peter was not far away, he still did not hear the conversation between Kevin and Kelly, and therefore it was not clear to him what had pissed off his friend, so he carefully asked if the blind woman had offended him. His question was met with a stern look and a warning that no one else should mention the 7 in front of him. For himself, he decided that he would no longer approach her, since she had made it clear that she was not interested in him. The guys came to the training ground, put on all the required uniforms, and the game began. The girls kept their eyes on the handsome Kevin, who looked even more courageous and attractive in his outfit. A few minutes passed. The game ended, one might say, without even starting, because except for the main character, No one even had time to fire a shot. He himself killed all the opponents. Peter, sitting in ambush, could not understand how Kevin was able to shoot everyone so quickly. Suddenly he heard footsteps, and turning towards their sound, he saw his teammate. But imagine his surprise when he discovered that he was pointing the barrel of his weapon at him. Although all these attributes were not real, and what was happening was just a game, Peter was seized with panic and misunderstanding of what was happening to his brother and why he wanted to kill his partner and not his enemy. No questions or arguments could stop Kevin. He shot point blank several times at the bewildered guy and left. In an attempt to find out the reason for this behavior, friends asked various questions, but received no answers. Then one of them got the idea that today's situation with a student from School 7 could have such an impact on their brother. He looked closely at the main character and noticed something unusual in him, not characteristic of him, and he was shocked by the thought that Kevin had fallen in love with that blind girl. In a moment of reflection, a stranger approached him and asked where she could find Kevin. Having said that he was probably in the restroom, the guest accompanied him, where they actually found the guy sitting on the sofa. The girl was not at a loss and took out a cigarette, handing it to the handsome man whom she wanted to meet. Seeing complete indifference and even ignorance on the part of the main character, the girl began to talk about herself. She introduced herself as Miranda, the best student in the 11th grade of the 7th school. When Kevin heard about the 7th school, about the best student, he was again overwhelmed by a wave of irritation. He approached the guest and directly asked whether she despised students like him, whether she considered them stupid and unworthy. Not expecting such questions and not understanding what he was getting at, she replied that they were all just people, regardless of who was in what school and how they studied. The answer did not satisfy Kevin. He accused Miranda of lying and drove her out of the room. The girl did not understand at all why she had angered her idol so much. The protagonist's friends, who had often misunderstood him lately, were also puzzled this time by what their friend didn't like about a beautiful, smart, and good character girl. Tom remembered Kelly, who was also the best, only in her class. Drawing a parallel, he also, like Peter recently, suspected that Kevin had fallen in love with a blind schoolgirl. Several days have passed since the last meeting of the main characters. Sitting at school, the girl recalled her past life. There, after eye surgery, the doctor forbade her to attend school even with glasses. She recalled how Linda caused a lot of trouble, because of which she got into trouble. But at the same time, Kelly never abandoned her sister with her difficulties. It was on one of these days that the main character met Kevin when she came to help Linda at the school, where the main handsome man studied. She remembered his appraising gaze well, because of which she experienced slight embarrassment and the feeling that he saw right through her. Approaching very close, without introducing himself or saying hello, he immediately asked if she was playing the piano that day. By that time, Kelly already knew about Linda's sympathy for Kevin, and therefore, ignoring his question, she asked to let them through. The sisters hurried to leave, and the heroine at that moment thought how wrong her idea of him turned out to be. For some reason, she thought he was easy to talk to, but when she saw him in anger, she realized how wrong her opinion of him was. In this life, she needs to do everything possible to make him hate her. Having brought herself back to the present moment, she began to prepare for the mathematics Olympiad, because she needed to win and receive a cash prize. Then she heard the voice of a classmate who said that Kelly had little chance of winning because Miranda from the 11th grade wins every year. In addition, there are rumors that she is in love with Kevin, and in order to impress him, she will also try to win this year. The heroine tried not to think about all this and focus on preparing for the Olympics, because she had to help her father with money. The Friday school day came to an end, and the students stood at the bus stop waiting for their buses. Peter, driving by, saw Miranda and called out to her. She came up and asked how they were doing, after which the guy asked Kevin if they could give the girl a ride. But she said that tomorrow she was writing the Olympiad, and therefore wanted to spend the night in a hotel so as not to travel far, promising to show something interesting when she won. Kevin was absolutely not interested in what was being said nearby. He saw Kelly at the bus stop. She stood alone, not paying attention to anyone. The guy noted that she still doesn't care about anyone. He looked at her intently, without taking his eyes off, which the girl could not help but feel. She wanted to fall to the ground, just not to be next to him again. Kevin saw that the schoolgirl was holding a math book in her hands, and guessed that she would also participate in the Olympiad. He turned to Miranda, asking where and when her Olympics were. Having learned the exact place and time, the driver stepped on the gas. His friend was so surprised by the interest shown that he asked if he was really planning to go there. In response, he saw Kevin grin, who said that he wanted to see the enchanting failure. The day of the Olympics arrived. The participants were already slowly gathering in the hall. Kelly was also there. Suddenly, guys on bikes appeared in the window and could not go unnoticed. The girls immediately paid special attention to them. The heroine, who had previously seen these motorcycles, immediately guessed who it was, despite the fact that the drivers were still wearing helmets. At the entrance, they were met by a security guard who said that an important event was being held in the building, and they were not allowed to go there. The guys who approached the building began to laugh at Kevin and his friends, saying that they dressed up like gangsters, and they probably wouldn't be allowed through. At the top of their voices, they discussed the unsightly appearance, and that if they want to look presentable, then they need to drive a car, not a motorcycle. But since they don't read anything normal, how would they know? Not wanting to hear such statements about himself anymore, Tom wanted to go over and deal with the smart guys, but his friend asked not to create problems that their brother would be unhappy with. When Kevin said that they had come to support their friend, the guard asked her name. Suddenly, the handsome young man noticed Kelly, who had been secretly watching what was happening all this time through the window. At that moment, Miranda ran up and, saying that these were her friends, asked them to let them through. Seeing the guard's inflexibility, she said that she had been winning for several years in a row, and the presence of support was very important for her. The guard allowed her to pass, telling the guys to turn off their phones and also not to smoke or make noise. Kevin's friends were outraged by such rules, but he himself calmly went inside the premises, throwing his cigarettes into the trash can at the entrance. As the guys walked through the building, everyone around them whispered, discussing them. Without paying attention, they walked on until they noticed a girl with glasses sitting separately from the others. Silently approaching the bench, the main character sat down next to Kelly, showing indifference with all her appearance. Inside, she felt excitement and misunderstanding why he sat down with her when there were many empty seats around. Looking around, she noted that the handsome man and the girl's favorite, as always, is in the center of attention. Nothing has changed in this regard. She prayed that he would not talk to her, but unfortunately, she heard his voice asking if she really didn't know that she should say hello to her acquaintances. Kevin wanted to get the girl emotional, but noted that she remained just as indifferent. Closing the book, she quietly, without turning to him, answered that they did not know each other. Not expecting such an answer, the guy asked how they didn't know each other and whether she didn't even know his name. Of course, the heroine knew the name of the person sitting next to her, so she quietly said his name. Without knowing why, Kevin froze when he heard his name from Kelly's lips, but immediately the stupor gave way to calm, and he replied that she had called him correctly. Then Miranda came up with the rest of the guys, who were surprised to see Kelly. The winner of previous years asked the girl if she correctly remembered that she was from the 10th grade of their school, to which she received an affirmative answer. Afterwards, she said that according to the rules, you cannot wear watches and sunglasses during the Olympics. The heroine thanked her for her concern and explained that the glasses were not sunglasses, but photochromic, and she couldn't wear them because of eye problems. At this moment, a voice from the loudspeaker announced the beginning and asked all participants to take their places, reminding the rules and informing that there would be severe punishment for cheating. On command, the participants began to make a decision, for which they were given exactly 150 minutes. Peter was unhappy with what was happening and said that it was worse here than in prison. He took out his phone to pass the time, but Kevin immediately took the phone away, saying that they didn't need to break the rules. The guys had no choice but to just sit and watch what was happening and wait for the end of the Olympics. Out of boredom, Peter came up with the idea to bet on the winner, and the loser buys ice cream. Tom readily supported the proposal and said that he was betting on Miranda. And it's not that he doesn't believe in Kelly, It's just that Miranda has been preparing for the Olympics for 8 years and has been winning for the last few years. Turning to Kevin, Peter asked who he would vote for, watching the girl whose thoughts haunted him and remembering her indifference to him. He replied that he didn't care. At the same time, he felt sad and depressed, but tried to feign indifference. This answer made Peter angry, because he could only give his vote to a blind 10th grader in whose victory he himself did not believe. After some time, one of the commission members said that she had the lists of winners in her hands, and she was ready to announce the names. The main character thought that she needed to take at least just a prize place in order to receive a cash prize and help Ollie's dad, and if she became the winner, the reward would be much higher. So, those present heard that Jennifer took 3rd place. She had 132 points. Kelly felt nervous and trembling in her legs. Immediately, a voice was heard, announcing that 2nd place belonged to the participant who had been gaining 136 points for several years in a row. Miranda, who was confident of her next victory, could not believe her ears that this time someone had passed her, and she was wondering who it was. The woman continued and finally reached 1st place, calling out the name of Kelly, who scored 142 points. The heroine was glad that she would receive 8,000 and would be able to help her father. Peter, who had given his vote to Kelly out of desperation, could not contain his surprise and joy that he had won the argument. Without waiting for the ceremony to end, Kevin headed for the exit. Miranda came up to congratulate the winner, to which she thanked and congratulated her in return and hurried to leave, citing urgent matters. As soon as the heroine left, not a trace remained of the good-natured face of her interlocutor. She could not understand why, having won a bunch of the same poor simpletons, this time she took 2nd place. She was overcome with anger because today, when she decided to show off in front of Kevin and declared that she was confident in her victory, she ended up losing. Looking after the leaving girl with glasses and a cane, she promised herself that she would remember her. Walking outside and seeing a lot of balloons, Kelly remembered that today was Thanksgiving. Suddenly, someone called her name. She turned to see Kevin handing her a fancy ice cream cone. Out of surprise, she stood silently, once again not understanding what the guy needed from her. The main character, seeing a silent question in her eyes, said that he saw her victory and held out the ice cream even closer. Kelly wanted to politely decline and go home, but she was preceded by the voice of the protagonist, who resolutely said that he did not want to hear a refusal. The girl took the ice cream and thought that since the day her mother died, she could not even think of buying something she loved. When she remembered her mother, she felt sad. At the same time, she didn't understand why Kevin bought ice cream for her. Did he really like her as much as in his previous life? Seeing that the girl became sad, the young man was surprised why ice cream could upset her, and when asked why he bought her a horn, he replied that he simply lost the argument. The schoolgirl felt relieved when she heard that her fear was not confirmed. The girl's favorite asked Kelly if her grades were good. When the heroine answered that the grades were ordinary, he could not hold back an irritated laugh. Sincerely not understanding her interlocutor's reaction, she asked what was so funny about her words. Reproaching the girl for the lack of logic, he sarcastically said that good grades are called good and not ordinary. Not wanting to listen to humiliation and bullying again, Kelly got ready to go home. When asked to give her a ride, she refused, saying that she would get there by bus. And so again she leaves, and he looks after her, not understanding why he is always drawn to talk to her. No matter how much he told himself that he was disgracing himself, the desire to be near the girl took over. Watching from the side, Peter indignantly said to Tom and Miranda standing nearby that Kevin refused to participate in the bet. But then why did he buy ice cream for the winner? Hearing whispers behind him, Kevin turned, looking sternly at the group discussing him. They pretended as if nothing had happened, so as not to incur the indignation of their leader. Only Miranda stood annoyed by the whole situation today. She didn't know what upset her more, losing for the first time in several years, or the fact that Kevin didn't pay attention to her at all. The main character turned to his friend, saying that he was responsible for the bike, and he himself moved in the direction where Kelly had recently gone. Then the girl called out to him, hurrying after him. Without slowing his pace, he turned to her, asking what she needed. Without any preamble, Miranda directly asked if it was true that he did not come to the Olympics because of her. Not immediately understanding what she was talking about, he asked to explain what she meant. Having slightly reduced her ardor, the 11th grader continued, saying that he had come to look at the girl with glasses. But it was no secret to anyone that she had problems with her eyes, and why did she give in to him like that? Her speech was interrupted by the dry and stern voice of the guy she liked so much. Kevin didn't care what others said or thought, and he continued on his way. His friends, who had previously suspected the hero's strange interest in the nerd from the 7th school, increasingly received confirmation of their guesses. The bus sounded its horn, indicating its departure, and the driver asked passengers to move further along the cabin and be careful as the doors were closing. A voice was heard in the cabin asking to wait. A handsome and slender guy appeared at the door of the bus, having managed to jump in at the last moment. Kelly wondered what a rich person with a car and a bike could do on public transport. The driver addressed the passenger who had entered, saying that he needed to buy a ticket. Of course, Kevin, who was using public transport for the first time, had no idea how to do it or how much the fare would cost. Naturally, there was no change in my pockets. Turning his head, he saw Kelly watching what was happening. Approaching her, he asked if the clever girl wanted to pay for him. In response to his question, the girl told him to better go home. The guy, without hesitation, took out a large bill from his wallet and put it into the machine. The heroine felt embarrassed that she refused to help, and the young man had to waste so much money because the machine did not give change. The bus finally started moving, and Kevin, having paid the fare, headed closer to Kelly. Along the way, he lamented why there were so many people and where everyone was going, to which the girl did not react at all, standing silently. Suddenly, the bus jerked sharply, and the girl ran into a passenger sitting next to her. At the same instant, she felt someone's strong hand grab her hand. Realizing that it was Kevin, she tried to pull her hand back, but that was not the case. Then she, in a demanding tone, ordered her to be released immediately. In response, she heard the question whether she could resist herself if she was released, to which the girl nodded her head in the affirmative. Once again, the bus braked sharply, and this time Kevin felt a push from behind. Turning around, he began to rudely threaten the guy who accidentally touched him. When the passenger began to say something in response, the main character became furious. Seeing Kevin in this state, Kelly remembered his ability to quickly lose control and what he could do in this state. Her fear and anxiety did not go unnoticed. The main character leaned over and reassured her, saying that he would not do anything bad to her. No words could make the man standing next to her less afraid. The remaining part of the journey passed calmly. The young people rode in silence. Kevin still stood next to the girl, as if protecting her from the others. Finally, the necessary stop that the heroine had been waiting for whom the time on the bus seemed like an eternity. She walked forward, but when she heard some sound, she turned around and saw that the guy, unaccustomed to such trips, was seasick and was not feeling well. Immediately, her sympathy was replaced by the thought that no one forced him to follow her. Looking at the girl, Kevin saw that she was still holding the ice cream in her hands, which had begun to melt. Again, not understanding her actions, he asked why she didn't eat ice cream. The girl began to look for an excuse, but the young man did not wait, took the horn from her hands and threw it into the trash can. Once again, Kel was convinced of his despotism and self-will. For her, it was incomprehensible to behave when he either gives or takes away, despite the fact that he was not asked for either one. The only thing that calmed her down was that she had no intention of communicating with him any further, and therefore, let him do what he wanted. The heroine asked Kevin to give her his hand. Although the guy didn't understand why, he didn't argue and extended his hand. The schoolgirl put a lemon candy on his palm, telling him to eat it and he would feel better. Having said goodbye to him, she headed towards the house. Kevin stood discouraged. He was not used to feeling such sincere care. He clutched the candy tightly, as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. Having come to his senses, he loudly called out to the retreating Kelly, and having caught up with her, grabbed her hand. The frightened girl turned around in anticipation. The guy immediately asked a question that interested him about what happened to her eyes. She said that she was in an accident and her eyes were damaged. Having asked if she could now see without glasses, and received the answer that the girl's eyes hurt because of the glare. He asked her to close her eyes and take off her glasses. The main character knew that the swelling had already disappeared from her eyes, and now they were no different from ordinary ones. She did not understand why he wanted to look at her without glasses. Out loud, Kelly said that her eyes looked strange now, just like when she was a student, that they were ugly and there was no need to look at them. Still holding the girl's hand, Kevin said that he didn't believe her and wanted to look at her. But when he saw the girl's reaction, he let her go. Before her companion came up with something else, the heroine began to run as fast as she could in her current state. Following Kelly's gaze, the young man examined the candy that the mysterious and incomprehensible girl had given him. Having popped the caramel into his mouth, he recalled their conversation, in which the heroine talked about her strange and ugly eyes. Also, he noted that it was not as boring as he thought. Clutching a candy wrapper in his fist, he reassured himself that it was okay that he didn't see a girl without glasses. And maybe it was true that there was no heavenly beauty there. The Olympic winner had just reached home and happily handed the winning card to her father. Ollie's dad, saying how proud he was of his daughter, refused the money, offering to spend it on buying clothes. The daughter convinced her that she had enough pocket money and asked not to give up the card, to which the head of the family replied that he himself was able to support his family. Kelly looked at her father, although not her own, with gratitude. She always felt that he was very kind to her. Leaving the card on the table in the living room, the girl went to her room. She kept trying to figure out how she could still earn extra money to help her family. Nothing came to mind, and she glanced at the box kept under her bed. Carefully and reverently taking out the box, she opened it and began to tell the objects in there how they had not seen each other for a long time and how much she missed them. The medallion from her last performance plunged her into sad memories. If she had not participated in that competition then, there would have been no accident, and my mother would have remained alive if she had not protected her. The girl began to cry from the memories, and she didn't know if she could take these things again. On Monday after class, Angelica told her friend how proud she was of her victory, and it doesn't matter that the boys think it's nonsense, and Miranda is more beautiful than Kelly. They're just stupid and don't understand anything. The heroine asked not to worry about her, since she doesn't care at all, and the main task is to help her father. From her past life, she remembers that housing prices will soon skyrocket, but her dad has already sold their house, and now they live in a house intended for families in need. Walking past the college, the girl saw a crowd of people discussing something. It turned out that all these spectators were watching the conversation between Molly and Kevin. The school beauty begged to renew their relationship, promising not to commit any more rash acts. But no words or arguments moved the guy, and he told her to leave. Kelly didn't want to watch all this, and she didn't want to meet Kevin again, so she asked her friend to leave there. Angelica, like the others, was interested in how this conversation would end, and why Kevin even talked down to Molly, whom all the guys in the area dream about. Who could he like if not this beauty? The girl was crying, trying to find out who he exchanged her for. Was it really the crammer Miranda? Because she couldn't hold a candle to her. Seeing the indifference and inflexibility on the part of the guy she was interested in, she began to recall their relationship, saying that she did not believe that they meant nothing to him. Her hysterical monologue was interrupted by the main character, who told her that in vain she considered herself better than everyone else. And turning to Peter, he asked if he had a photo with him. A moment later, the friend took the medallion out of his pocket, opened it, and showed it to the crying schoolgirl. He added that Kevin likes the girl in this photo, but Molly clearly doesn't reach her, and besides, his friend is already very tired of him, so he should stay away. Seeing her medallion, which was still in the box that night, Kelly could not understand how Peter got it. The girl's favorite switched to more rude communication and drove away the girl who was still standing next to them. After such words, Molly ran away in tears. Angelica, expecting something interesting, called her friend home in disappointment. The heroine was still tormented by the question of how the medallion fell into the wrong hands. It turned out that Kevin himself also did not know where his friend got this thing from, to which he said that the girl who played the piano gave him this trinket, which turned out to have a photo. From the conversation, Kel realized that Linda, her half-sister, gave the locket to the guy. Peter, meanwhile, persuaded his brother to look at the girl in the photo as beautiful as an angel. At first glance, Kevin was stunned by the incredible resemblance between the cute girl in the locket and the girl with glasses. He replayed the image of Kelly in his memory. And then I looked at the photo again and couldn't understand why they were so similar. His friend kept saying how sweet and beautiful the girl in the photo was, asking his friend if he agreed with him. The main character agreed and admitted that the girl was really beautiful. Kelly, telling Angelica that she had urgent business, hurried home. Entering the room, she discovered that the box had been opened. Everything in it had been scattered, and the dress and medallion were missing. It was the last dress her mother sewed, and therefore it was important for her to return it, for which she followed to her sister's room and demanded the return of what she had taken without permission. With a surprised and innocent look, Linda said that she did not understand what she was talking about. How bitter it was at that moment to realize that this was the sister she so dearly loved in her past life, for the sake of whose salvation she was mutilated. Now she blames herself for never doubting her, but now, in this life, there are no more concessions. This time, without standing on ceremony with her sister, she directly asked why she took the medallion to Kevin. Was it really to rise in his eyes? Not accustomed to such treatment from Kelly, Linda began to shout that all these were groundless accusations, and if she did not stop, then she could not vouch for herself. In a calm but steely voice, the heroine said that this was the last dress that her mother sewed before her death, and the medallion kept the last photo of them together, and that she was ready to forgive everything except this. Linda had never seen her sister like this before. It was as if she had been replaced, and therefore, unable to lie any longer, she admitted that she had gone to the birthday party and borrowed the dress. She shouted that if she had something like that, then she wouldn't have to borrow someone else's, and in general, because of Kelly's eyes, they live so poorly. Since all the money goes to pay off the debt for the operation. Gathering all her will into a fist, the main character, in the same steely voice, said that she remembers everything she owes her father, but she personally doesn't owe her anything because she already received almost everything she had. The girl remembered how she played the piano, and Linda also wanted to, but the family could pay for the lessons of only one child, and Kelly refused for the sake of her sister. Having switched to dancing, for some reason Linda again needed to go there, and again the girl refused for the sake of her sister, studying at home, and she quit after a month, unable to bear the muscle pain after training. Not wanting to listen to the bitter truth anymore, the stepsister began to scream, gagging the heroine. Kelly threatened that if her things were not returned, she would go to Kevin herself and ask him for them. Linda continued to scream, telling her to do what she wanted, but if she told her father, she would complain that Kel was spreading rot on his own daughter. The conversation did not end in anything constructive. The door was simply slammed in the face of the main character. The evening of the next day, the girl went to her sister's school with the intention of returning her dress. She hoped that Linda would not want to make a fuss there and would return the things peacefully. But she did not expect that the schoolgirl would skip class and go to Tom's birthday party. Kelly went to where the holiday was celebrated, but she was not allowed in because she did not have an invitation. Having said that she was also Tom's friend, she was just late and heard a reproach addressed to her that lying was not good. The heroine could not afford to ruin her dress and therefore decided to use her charm, took off her glasses and timidly repeated that she was really a friend. The employee could not resist and called the hero of the occasion to find out about the guest. The guys were playing poker when the phone rang, and they said that Kelly had approached and wanted to join the celebration. Upon hearing the news, Kevin moved all the chips to his friend, saying that he was buying his phone. Picking up the phone, he ordered the guest to be let in, but at the same time tell her to walk up because the elevator was broken. The guy was clearly happy that Kel came to the party. After thanking the man and woman at the reception, the heroine went to the stairs. On the third floor, she suddenly hit something. Rubbing her forehead in pain, she stepped aside, trying to see what she might have hit. Looking up, the girl saw Kevin in front of her. She began to apologize, asked if it hurt him, asked him to forgive. Once again, the young guy saw how the heroine was afraid of him. Leaning over, he said that he was in great pain, which frightened the girl even more. She started apologizing again, saying that she didn't do it on purpose. After which, she blurted out that it was he who scared her. Hearing the last phrase, the guy indignantly asked if they were really taught this at School 7. In response to his question, Kelly replied that they were not only taught to admit their mistakes, but also the importance of forbearance. Laughing artificially, Kevin said that he was wildly apologetic, but he was so stupid that he didn't understand what he was talking about. Watching the young man, the girl remembered how he behaved in a past life. Namely, he brutally killed people. Deciding not to play with a dangerous man, she bowed and apologized once again. Stretching out her hand, the frightened girl invited him to hit her back. The guy accepted the offer, warning him not to shout. The girl agreed, closed her eyes and prepared for the blow. Kevin swung, but nothing happened, and she slowly opened one eye. The main character waved his hand, refusing to hit back. Instead, he gave her a lighter and told her to light a cigarette for him. He very rudely demanded that she come closer and added that he was not going to give her a special invitation. Despite the fear that held her, she understood that if she did not do what he wanted, she would not get to the top and, in addition, would anger the already angry Kevin. Therefore, she stood on her tiptoes and brought the lighter to the cigarette. Looking at the girl, the handsome man realized that he was doing something stupid. Kelly quickly gave the lighter back and ran upstairs. Left alone on the flight of stairs, Kevin thought that they shouldn't cross paths again, and he'd better not look at her. The party was already in full swing, and one of the guests asked Linda to dance because she was a dancer. But the girl herself knew that, unlike her sister, she did not dance, but made faces. Therefore, a plan came into her head to get her dress dirty and avoid shame. Her thoughts were interrupted by Kelly's voice calling out to her. The girl approached her sister and said that she would give her exactly 5 minutes to change clothes and return her dress. After which she turned to Peter and apologized and asked to return the medallion that he showed yesterday. The guy didn't understand what Kelly had to do with the thing Linda gave him. Seeing her sister's serious mood, Linda took her hand and in a gentle voice asked her to step aside and talk. Left alone, with the same sweet voice, the girl persuaded Kelly to lend her a dress for one day, saying that they were sisters and should help each other, and she could not return the medallion, because then they would look at her askance. Again, a stream of lies and excuses. But now all this did not touch the main character. Now everything is different. And therefore Kel did not give in to persuasion and demanded that she return the dress and go for the medallion. She added that she would tell the guys that it was not Linda who played the piano then. And in addition to this, she stole other people's things. No matter how the girl tried to evoke pity and sympathy, resorting to previously effective methods, this time nothing worked, not even complaining that they were sisters, and therefore should be kinder to each other. Once upon a time, her sister's word meant so much to the heroine, but it was because of this word that she was mutilated and killed, and therefore, not wanting to repeat her mistakes, Kelly repeated once again that either she gets her things, or she tells the guys everything. Of course, Linda could not allow Kevin to find out that the piano, dancing, dress, medallion belonged to her blind relative. She promised that she would definitely return everything, but then let Kelly not regret that she would stop being a sister to her. The heroine received her dress and, carefully squeezing it in her hands, prepared to leave the room. Her half-sister, not wanting to calm down, decided to hurt the patient, accusing her of insensitivity because her mother died before her eyes and she was going to dance again, to which I received advice to take better care of myself. Out of nowhere, the hero of the occasion appeared and began calling Kelly somewhere. As she approached, she saw Kevin, whom she had already forgotten about due to the recent unpleasant conversation. The young man asked if this was her dress. In order not to give Linda away, Kelly had to lie that the dress was someone else's, had been borrowed for a short time, and now needed to be returned. The guests, who had recently been jealous of the beautiful dress, did not miss the opportunity to gloat, remembering how she boasted about an exclusive handmade product that turned out to be not hers. Having pulled out the medallion, the guy asked the heroine whether it belonged to her or was also someone else's, and if not hers, then why should he give it to her? Linda hastened to say that the thing was hers and asked to return it. to which she immediately received a rude response from Kevin, who replied that she should back off and that everything in his hands belonged to him. Turning again to the clever girl, the guy offered to play for the medallion. She had no desire to get involved with him at all, but since there was a photograph of her mother inside the locket, she could not allow him to remain in the hands of such people, and therefore asked what kind of game he was offering. The essence of the game was to guess which number would come up, less than 123 or more than 456. Holding the dice at the ready, he announced the conditions under which, if he wins, the medallion is given to Kelly. If he loses, she must buy him breakfast for a week. One of the friends in a whisper tried to object to the leader of the company that the game was unfair, since the girl could not beat their friend at dice. Realizing that it was impossible to argue and their chances were 1-to-1, she agreed, hoping for luck and bet on less. The game began. Nervous tension increased. The heroine closely watched the movements of Kevin, who was shaking the bones. He tried to figure out why the medallion was so important to her that she agreed to the bet, despite the fact that she hated him so much. Everyone seemed to freeze for a moment while the game was happening. There was silence. The young man stopped and invited the participant to open it herself. Barely coping with her emotions, she walked over and slowly opened the bones. Seeing the layout, she stood silently for a moment. And when I realized that I had won, I couldn't contain my joy, just like Kevin couldn't contain his surprise. But looking at the sincere, genuine joy of the sweet girl, he seemed to thaw, and he calmly confirmed his loss, handing the medallion to Happy Kelly. Having taken the thing dear to her, the main character began to run before something happened again. Peter couldn't believe that his friend, who was a professional dice player, lost to a girl. Kevin only calmly replied that he lost, and there was no point in muttering, after which he ordered everyone to go home. The day came to visit the ophthalmologist, but Ollie's dad could not accompany his daughter, and therefore entrusted the trip to the doctor to Kyle. Kelly wanted to go on her own, especially since she felt that she still could not find the key to her stepbrother's heart. Having met him after school, she said that she could go herself, but the guy in charge decided not to violate his father's instructions, and they went together. When entering the bus, the girl stumbled and almost fell. Kyle carefully supported his sister and tried to protect her from the people who were crowding behind them. Kevin, who happened to see this scene from the side, stopped dead in his tracks. He heard his brother's surprised voice saying that it looked like the nerd had a boyfriend. Having woken up, calling Kelly, the main character rushed to the bus, which was already leaving the stop. No matter how hard the athletic and energetic guy tried to catch up with the moving vehicle, he failed. Then he took a stone and threw it at the bus. From surprise, Kel, like the other passengers, were scared. Looking out the window, she saw an angry Kevin standing by the road. Although his friends were accustomed to his brother's antics, this time even they were worried whether everything was okay with his head. Kyle, also dumbfounded by what had happened, turned to his sister asking if she knew this guy. The girl remained silent, and her brother did not pester her anymore. For the first time after her rebirth, Kelly noticed that some little things began to change. However, fate as a whole was still moving along the beaten path. The hospital said that her eyes had fully recovered, whereas in her previous life it took another half a month. She remembered that before Linda often performed some tricks that led to sooner or later getting an infection in her eyes. But now the heroine no longer followed her lead, regularly did not take off her glasses, and recovered faster. Her world became light, bright, and colorful again, but her main problems began precisely when her eyes recovered, and therefore she put on her glasses again, making everything around her gray again, but resolutely vowing to herself to change her fate. Meanwhile, the guys tried to calm down their leader, bought him a drink, and suggested he cool down. Tom and Peter were still reeling from the recent incident and recalled how Kevin asked them if they were afraid that he would touch his head and kill them. Then they took it as a joke, but now they feel uncomfortable with such inappropriate actions of a friend. They were forced to admit that Kevin really did not control his aggression, and it's scary to imagine what could happen if the bus stopped. Having sat on their bikes and about to start, the guys saw a young couple walking, talking, and laughing merrily. It was Kevin's ex-girlfriend with a boy from school 7. Seeing her lover, she began to make excuses, saying that he was just a classmate to whom she was returning books she had previously lent. The main character clarified whether relationships are prohibited at their school. Molly plaintively said that everything was wrong and that she loved and always loved only Kevin. But he, not paying attention to her words, continued to ask questions, and this time he was interested in what could catch her in this nerd, except perhaps the grades. Not wanting to hear any more about the beauty's great love for him, he got on his bike and left. For a rich and confident, handsome man, hearing declarations of love was not uncommon, but he knew for sure that most of these words were lies. Unexpectedly, he asked a friend driving next to him why Kelly began dating some guy. Peter, who had not expected such a question, suggested that maybe she simply did not refuse communication, or maybe she was not as shy as she seemed. Kevin remembered Kelly with the guy on the bus, and it became more and more unclear to him. If she is not so shy, then why can't she communicate with him?